Hey friends, so I thought I'd just make a video about what? I just I just took a nap from like 7 to 10:30, 11. It's 12:30 a.m. now, and I just had a coffee and I'm about to start working on one of my essays. And I just felt like making a quick video before I do that, thinking out loud about my process, I guess, which is that I feel a bit guilty and ashamed maybe sometimes about my weird cycles and habits, like oh, I shouldn't be drinking coffee at night. But and I think I have this idea in my head that oh, a perfect or like a optimal way of being is to not use stimulants. I don't know where I got the idea from. I guess from watching footage, reading about very healthy people, and I feel like oh, that's not very healthy to be up late at night and writing and drinking coffee. And yet, it kind of dawned on me while I was in the shower that the optimal amount of stimulant use for me at this point in my life might not be zero, which is I don't know if that feels like a silly or obvious thing to say, but I didn't feel it to be true very strongly until now. And I was reflecting on how, writing my book, Introspect, I spent like 2 years on it, and a lot of it was very late night coffee, kind of quote unquote unhealthy patterns of work. But finishing that book was so satisfying for me, such a relief, such a valuable thing to have done. And I don't know if I could have done it trying to sleep early, wake up early, exercise, all of those things. So, I feel like I just wanted to say that for myself that there are intermediate states towards a progression of some ideal state, and trying to inhabit the optimal state right away can be difficult. It can be overwhelming. It can be impossible, sort of, seemingly. It's just very far outside the realm of what is likely. And, it's like if taking 2 steps back means you get to take 3 steps forward, that can be worthwhile. And yeah, I know that the tricky and challenging thing is how do you know you're taking 2 steps back and then you're not just going to take more steps back and more steps back and more steps back. So there is how do you know you're not bullshitting yourself, right? You never really know for sure. And again, like the optimal amount of self bullshit might not be zero. And I guess at a meta level, like being too anxious, too ashamed, too guilty to the point where you're not functional is not helpful, right? And I'm remembering that when going off cigarettes, so I used to smoke very regularly, and I had to smoke all the time. And part of quitting smoking is so the cigarettes are a coping mechanism for something, whatever the thing is. And to uninstall that cope, you also have to deal with the meta guilt and shame around the habit. Because if you feel guilty about smoking and then you try to quit and then you fail at trying to quit, and even that, what does fail at trying to quit mean, right? But like you fail at trying to quit, then the guilt and shame that arises is so uncomfortable that it makes you want to smoke even more. So part of dismantling cigarettes as a coping mechanism, first of all, is forgiving yourself about the guilt and the shame, and finding new ways to deal with whatever it is that the cigarettes were a cope for, right? So it's redistributing the load. Because I would describe it as a coping mechanism. It's like a load-bearing coping mechanism, right? The cope is doing something for you, even if it's not good for you. It's protecting you in some way, or it's fulfilling some need, right? And you can't magically wish those needs away. It's easier to redistribute those needs and get them addressed in other ways more healthily, and then so that's an intermediate state, and you keep going to the next better intermediate state, next better intermediate state. And what else? I'm gonna be working on my essay right after this. Do I want to talk about that? I think yeah, I learned some things working on introspecting that I have not yet fully adopted into my process, my like day-to-day living process. Like it's kind of in a box, and the thing is always to repeatedly open up the box, take out the thing, see how it all relates. And yeah, like so I had a conversation with Luli about writer's block. And do I have writer's block? I don't. I experience friction, tension, um, something slows me down, something weighs me down that keeps me from inhabiting what might feel like an ideal state of productivity. And I never liked that phrase, productivity, but I know that I like writing. I know that I want to write a lot. I know that I have a lot of stuff that I want to share. I also know that I can be quite harsh on myself with regards to the state of my writing. And there's something here about, I don't think that the way through is to kind of force myself to write. That doesn't work. Like, my best writing flows, right? And what allows for flow is curiosity, playfulness, some passion, some desire, right? And I guess I want to remind myself to be in tune with that, in touch with that. And I think that's about all I have to say for this session. I now want to go and work on my essay. And maybe I'll make a separate video tomorrow, some other time. I don't know. I'll comment, maybe, probably not. It's just leaving an intention out there for my future self to maybe consider. That I guess I wanted to say that I enjoy writing and that I enjoy this process, even if it's slightly weird or slightly strange. Like, I was just thinking about like the romance of late nights. I have a word vomit from like 2013 or 2015 where I'm like, whatever else is going on in the world, my work happens so much in isolation, and I like it that way. It's these moments of me sitting in my room. My wife's in the shower. This is where the quote unquote magic happens. And I kind of want to always just remember that. I anticipate that things won't always be like this. I remember when I used to walk home from work. I would walk from my office to the train station, and from the train station I'd take the train back home and all that. And I'll always be thinking because it's like for 5 years, every weekday I'd walk that same path. And I would think to myself, oh, it's another day, like I'm doing it again. Like, here we go, another day, right? And I do remember telling myself, well, one day this won't be the case. One day you will no longer be working at this company or in this office, and so one day you'll miss it, kind of. And I do. I left the company. The company is no longer even at that office anymore during COVID. And yeah, I wish I had made a video then. Maybe I didn't have the guts at the time to like hold the camera in front of my face and start recording. And yeah, I wish I had recorded some of those thoughts and feelings. I have written notes so I can revisit those, and I'm grateful to my past self for at least trying to do that within the context of this bigger, broader project that I'm trying to do. And similarly, I'm not always gonna be in this room. Right, some of my oldest videos, I don't suggest you go looking, but some of my oldest videos on my channel are of me playing guitar at my parents' place. And we no longer live there, they no longer live there, someone else bought the house, it's been renovated. So my childhood home no longer exists. And I never exactly set out to make a record of that home, but it exists in those videos where I'm playing guitar. Right, and I'm just kind of emotional thinking about that, and just wanting to make these videos. So I used to make a bunch of videos sitting in a chair over there, and my wife and I were getting rid of that chair. And next time I'm going to look at some of the videos that I made and be like, oh yeah, that chair. What does that chair mean? What does it represent something? I don't know, but I just wanted to. I'm glad that I made those videos. And yeah, it's essay writing time, and I hope you guys are well. I would love to hear about any strange parts of your creative process. And done.